So guys, good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jamie and I have Andrew the Aardvark on camera with me once again for a very, very exciting sunrise safari that we have planned. And on the other vehicle we have Stef on Wendy along with Brian, and Stef is heading up to follow up on the Birmingham boys from last night. And Andrew and myself are just hanging around where I think the hyena den might be. And while we have this fantastic shot, these are little Coqui Francolin. And I often make the mistake when I see Francolin of just assuming it's one of the more common ones, like the crested Francolin or the Natal spurfowl, which looks fairly similar. And it was actually Andrew who drew my attention to these guys and their sort of diagnostic, quite orange head and orange crest along the top there. So this is pretty exciting for me. It's the first time I've seen Coqui Francolin while I've been here. I obviously haven't been looking hard enough. And we are a live safari, so you are watching on your screen a Coqui Francolin, and we are sitting with them right now on Djuma Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. And if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like to make, you can do so on Twitter at #SafariLive, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Very, very cool. Really pretty little birds when we stop and look at them. So definitely a great way to start off the sunrise safari. And last night we were actually really given quite a treat as the 5 Birmingham boys walked straight past camp, calling regularly, and we went out to go and have a look at them, and there's nothing like the feeling of 5 huge male lions calling right next to your car. We went out with Tara and Jess, who are in FC, which is a great evening for them as well. Get to really enjoy the bush in which they work. And just that feeling, we dropped all of the lights as they started calling, and we just sat in the dark with the largest one, who I believe is being nicknamed Blondie. He was probably about maybe 5 or so meters from the car at his closest point. And when you're sitting with all 5 of them calling, it's that amazing rumble that goes straight through you. You can feel it vibrating in your chest cavity. So a really, really special moment last night. So the plans for this morning, we will be hooking around towards the southern boundary, so Gowrie, Main, on Djuma. I want to see if all of that calling last night prompted any kind of response from the Matimba males. I want to see if maybe they started moving towards the direction of the Birmingham boys. They haven't seemed to be responding. I think they're feeling a little bit, and rightly so, nervous of what's happening with the Birmingham boys. And it was very, very quiet this morning when I was listening for the lions calling at about 5 o'clock. So I'm not sure what they're up to, but it might be useful to just go and have a look, because apparently they immediately rushed to where that Styx female was when the cubs were killed, and they sort of moved around that area quite a bit. So I'm very, very keen to see what's happening there. And then, of course, those mysterious 2 leopards that we've been looking for. I'm still going to loop around the drainage line where I believe that they were hiding yesterday afternoon for the sunset safari. So we'll have a look there. But for now, I'm in the area of where I believe the hyena den to be. And I'm curious to see where they've moved. I'm just sort of taking a chance, because I did hear, although I didn't hear any lions this morning, I did hear hyenas shouting. Let us see if we can locate that hidden den. I have a suspicion that they are tucked away in that drainage line somewhere. But I haven't seen any tracks this morning on this road. So I'm not sure where these little hyenas have moved off to. Little Coqui Francolin. out. Definitely a new bird for me while I've been here working for WildEarth. And hopefully for some of the newer viewers, a new bird to add to your bird list in progress. An amazingly beautiful morning. Now the weatherman tells us that it's 13 degrees centigrade, and which equates to about 56 Fahrenheit. I'm not sure I agree. I'm definitely warmer than I have been in months, first thing in the morning. And last night when we went out to have a look at those Birmingham boys, I was still wearing just my shirt, so it's definitely heating up. I think that incredibly warm wind just blew away the last of the cold front and hopefully is blowing in the start of summer. I keep saying that and then we keep getting caught out by cold fronts. I'm not going to stick around. I actually wanted to have a closer look at that Steenbok because I think it might be, I could be wrong, but I think it might be a young male who's just starting to grow horns. I just caught the sort of black tip on the top of the head, although it does look to be fully grown. Definitely looked as though it had quite dark patches on the top of its head. And Steenbok are one of those antelope that only the males have horns and the females don't, and that's partly as an adaptation to the environment that they live in. So they stay nice and hidden, and there's no reason for the females to actually develop horns and have them. They'd just be a bit of a disadvantage as they're moving through their sort of thick undergrowth habitat. But antelope, as opposed to something like a giraffe, actually grow their horns from tiny little growth points on the top of their head, and originally starts off sort of laying down soft cartilage, which is then reinforced with bone, and then a keratin sheath that forms over the top of that. And that formula applies across the board from the smallest little antelope like the Steenbok all the way up to the kudu and the eland. And that incredible spiral horn of the kudu, I'm sure many of you have sort of been familiar with the football World Cup or the soccer World Cup, depending on which part of the world you're from. And the sort of, I hesitate to use the word instrument, but expression of joy, those plastic tubes that people blow, that make that very, very loud buzzing sound when blown in unison, and those are known as vuvuzelas. And actually the origin of those in terms of South African history comes from people taking the keratin sheath, and you can actually unscrew it. I've done it before on a kudu skull. You can unwind the keratin sheath so you get that long, curved, looping, hollowed out keratin. And if you make a tiny little hole in the top, you can actually blow in and produce a horn-like sound. And it has been used by local cultures to just be used as a communication device. You can make it sound very, very loud. I have tried. It comes out more as sort of a sound. So I'm not very good at it, but there are people I know who can do it. I still want to just loop around. For the sake of consistency, I am going to go and check the other hyena den, the old hyena den. I don't see, it doesn't look that positive from the view I have at the moment, but we will get a little bit closer. It's sort of tucked away in there. Oh, hello little Steenbokkie, you're still browsing away there. looking a little bit chilly and a little bit fluffed up this morning, so maybe the Steenbok doesn't agree with my weather assessment. Just nibbling at the base of the leaves of what looks like one of the acacias, probably in this kind of environment a flaky thorn acacia, as we are sitting right on a seep line. There is quite a cacophony of birdsong happening around us. It's not terribly loud, but I can hear a black-crowned shagra, emerald-spotted wood dove, singing its rather mournful-sounding tune. Some drongos chirping away, as always. Ever-present, reliable drongos. Okay, let's go and check the old hyena den, see what's happening on that side. I still haven't seen that many tracks, so I'm starting to think that if they were in this area, they might have moved out of the area, and that could be as a result of the fact that the lions moved through here, as well as a very, very large buffalo herd, which might have played a role in disturbing them. My way into the hyena den, and I have just spotted fresh hyena tracks, so we might be about to get lucky. But I'm sure you're wondering what Stef has been up to and if he has any updates for you guys. So we're going to cross across to Stef, see what he's been doing with his morning, and I will catch up with you a little bit later.
Good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari with myself, Stefan, and on the back of the vehicle, behind the camera is Bryan. And we've decided to come into this part of the reserve this morning because we wanted to follow up on what happened to those Birmingham boys from last night. And we ended up tracking their tracks all the way to the gate, the main gate of the Sabi Sands, and they crossed west into the Manyeleti. Who knows why? Gone back home, gone back to see mom and the kids. Who knows? But they'll definitely be back. I have no doubt that they're going to be looping back into the Sabi Sands again at some point. It's been a very quiet morning from a audio point of view. Nothing's going on at the moment. It's almost eerily still. Had a few hippos calling, heard a hyena, but that was about it, the general sort of thing. Oh, and don't forget the ever-present woodpecker that's busy bashing his face around. But what we did find was one of the first signs that spring or summer is coming. It's on the way. Not just from a flower point of view, from an insect point of view. And I'm going to try my best to try and show you. It is going to take me to reposition the car. I'm going to try and get us onto a bit of a high patch here. And then we're going to do a bit of track and sign interpretation. But for me to do that, I just got to get this vehicle into a better position here so that Bryan can actually show you what he needs to show you. You see that, bro? I'm going to climb out quickly. Excuse me. And try and not let this vehicle squash my track. But basically we're going to be looking at the sequence of tracks that are between my finger marks right here. And just want to wave one of our... We're on a main road here, and morning. Good morning. It's one of the access roads. Alrighty, so we have got a track that is made up of 3 parts. The most obvious part is this central part right here, which is a drag mark of some sort. And then we've got tracks on either side here, and we have tracks here. And you'll notice that the tracks are very similar. They are made up of 1, 2, 3 almost parallel lines, and 1, 2, 3 almost parallel lines. A little bit off center from one another. So you've got their line, their line, their line, their line, almost like an off center ladder. But the trick is, and I'm going to do it in big, you've got a drag mark straight, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That is the track, and that is diagnostic for a scorpion. And the scorpion that made this particular track, it's a fairly large track. I have no doubt that it's one of the shiny burrowing scorpion, a Pistacanthus something. Excuse me for not remembering that this morning. It's quite a mouthful this early in the morning. But this is one of the first signs that summer is on the way. When scorpions are starting to move around at night time, which this is, then you know that the evenings are warm enough that they build up enough metabolic heat that they can actually be active, and he's out looking for some food. Hold on, we've got some lions roaring. Alright, well at least we know where the Birmingham boys have gone. They are lying just on the other side of the gate. At least not too far away from where we saw their last tracks. Crazy. and in the distance, after we heard the lions roaring, a whole bunch of staff at the gate giving the screams and shouts. I've no doubt those lions are probably lying right outside the staff village and gave them all a big fright. But anyway, okay, so 2 good pieces of news. We've got the Birmingham boys lying right at the gate, and we have scorpions that are on the move again. So summer on the way for us. Anyway, let me plug myself back in. Then I think let's go back to the gate and go and see if we can see these guys. Cross your thumbs that they're actually going to be moving back into our area and not away. All right. Send you to Jamie, and we'll give you an update as soon as we can.
So guys, welcome back. and we do apologize for Stef's signal issues. So while you were with Stef, we did a quick loop and we had a look for any tracks going into that old hyena den. Unfortunately, no luck there. These hyenas continue to evade us, but I know that we are not the only people looking for the new active hyena dens, so hopefully we'll have some luck in the next couple of days. I'm sure we are all dying to see that gorgeous little cub again, and I'm also curious to see if it's got his spots yet, or if it's going to be a bit of a late developer in that regard. So I've also been listening to the Game Drive channel, and it sounds as though those Birmingham boys are still calling, and I think you might have heard that with Stef. So they are still sort of trying to stamp out some territorial regions. They've terrorized the southern section of the Matimbas territory, and now they're on their way up into the north towards Buffelshoek. And they've proved to be completely unpredictable in terms of their movements and what they're up to. So I'm not even going to try and work out exactly what their plans are or where they're going to be next. I do want to, I'm almost at the southern boundary of Djuma, and I do just want to see if the Matimbas have made any kind of appearance on this side, even if just to patrol and have a bit of a sniff around the area. Warming up very quickly this morning. I think today is going to be a scorcher, probably one of the hottest days I've had since I've been here. Ooh, it's going to land fairly close to us. Let's see if we can get a visual of that bird. We're quite secretive and shy. Sorry, Andrew.
Okay.
Doesn't want to be seen. I'm just going to shift forward ahead of him.
Oh, it's flying.
Oh, there he goes. And unfortunately, he keeps flying away from me. But it was a red-crested korhaan. And the reason I'm trying to get a nice visual of him is because we are entering their breeding season. So let me try one more time just to loop around, because we might get that rare treat and actually get to see the red crest if he does start to call. It is that perfect time of year for them. They start to do their flight displays and their territorial displays. Hugely entertaining birds to watch. Try sneaking in here. Stop here for a moment, see if I can see him again. And in the meantime, I'm just going to grab my bird book, show you which bird I'm talking about, and hopefully he relaxes a little bit.
Where did he go?
I have no idea. That was absolutely... Oh, there he is. He is moving down there where that fallen tree is, just straight below. In completely the opposite direction to where I want him to go. but at least we can see him. With that very, very distinctive black belly. So, a brief visual, but at least we did get to see him. And I do just want to show you what he looks like in the bird book. So, this is the bird we were after, the red-crested korhaan. And you very, very seldom get to see the reason behind the name red-crested. It only really comes out in their breeding season when they pop that red crest up. And I've actually only seen it once or twice in my life. So it's really a good time to start looking at them. But that is the red-crested korhaan. It's very easy to confuse with the black-bellied bustard, which is just up here. And you can see why, because they do both have that distinctive black belly. But in this case, the red-crested korhaan, the black doesn't extend all the way up the neck. And they're also known as the suicide bird. So the reason behind that name is for part of their mating displays and their mating rituals, they will actually fly right up into the sky. First they call with a repeated high-pitched whistle, then the males fly up into the sky, drop their wings and tumble out of the sky. And I know there's quite a few birds who do that, but in this area this is one of our only ones that demonstrates that particular flight display. And the higher he goes and the longer he falls before he opens his wings, before he hits the ground, and they do a very graceless tumble onto the ground, the more attractive the females find this particular display of bravado for some reason. So that is the history behind the name suicide bird. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to want to give us a demonstration. But I must say, one of my favorite korhaan moments was actually driving around a corner and catching a male in mid-display, and all of a sudden my car bonnet was basically in the way of where he was going to tumble out of the sky, and he opened his wings, tumbled onto the bonnet. It was okay, but it wasn't the most dignified landing I've ever seen. Landed on the bonnet, gave me a huge fright, gave himself a huge fright, and then disappeared off into the bush with his feathers somewhat ruffled, and the female sort of headed off in the opposite direction to look for more successful prospective mates. Okay, well, he has disappeared. We shall head on our way for our timber search. To the main cut line, or one of the main cut lines, the southern end of Djuma. And the last we heard, the Matimbas were just south of us in that block. So now it becomes a question of have they or will they decide to respond to the Birmingham boys challenge, or will they decide that they are happy enough to give over at least part of their territory. the fact that it was completely silent last night from this side, or at least this morning, makes me think that maybe they've decided that they might stay in sort of the Hoffman's property side and not challenge the Birmingham boys. Nice group of bachelor herd, or a nice bachelor herd of Impala here. Looking very pretty in the morning light. And the little fork-tailed drongo flapping around at their feet, trying to get into whatever insects they disturb. And Andrew and I actually had quite a nice experience with a fork-tailed drongo when we were driving into the Matimba Boys sighting, not the Matimba Boys, sorry, the Birmingham Boys sighting 2 days ago. And this little drongo actually followed our car for quite a long time and was zipping in and out right next to the wheels to try and get hold of the insects flying around. They are disappearing off into the block. Still enjoying their breakfast for the morning. Definitely just a herd of bachelors. I don't see any females. And we've got another sort of straggler or hanger-on. It's like a yellow-billed hornbill. And they will do similar things to what the drongos do, is follow behind herds, not as frequently as some of the other, as the drongos, but they will tag along behind the herds. One of the big things about being on a cut line like this is that there's often plenty of vehicle activity, so I do just need to shift off the road for some vehicles who are coming through. Just move to the side quickly. Good, and you? Hi guys. Sorry guys, there's another vehicle on its way. So just going to say hello to them when they come past, although they've stopped to chat with the other vehicles. And we've got what looks to be It's a bit tricky from this angle. Possibly kudu dung. Maybe a little bit small for kudu dung. It's too big for impala dung. And it's not scattered enough for giraffe dung. So I'm going to go kudu. Thanks for that, Andrew. Sorry guys, we've got one more vehicle coming. And then I will get back to a question on Steenbok and Duiker. So, if you'll bear with me for 1 second. We had a little bit of a sighting earlier with that little Steenbok. And Jane in Colorado wanted to know how you tell the difference, or she has a difficult time telling the difference between Steenbok and Duiker. So I'm going to try and help you out for a second. Just let me find the pictures of the two of them. And I can understand why, because they are very, very similar in size. So I'll just have a look through and find a good picture to show you. So let's start. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of them together, which would have been the most helpful in terms of answering this question. But let's start with the Duiker, and we'll carry on after that if I can find a picture of the Steenbok. Otherwise, I'll just describe it with the Duiker picture. So this is the common or the grey Duiker. So that's the species that we get to see. And they've got, you'll see, quite a straight back, which is one of the ways that I always identify them. They've also got, if you see them facing front on, they've got this amazing little mohawk of hair, especially the females, between the ears. And they have as the name suggests, a slightly grey tinge to their colouring, although that does depend a little bit on the way that the light catches them and on the area that they're in. But the most diagnostic for me is the fact that their back is very, very straight and they're slightly longer in terms of length from nose to the end of the tail. They have quite an elongated shape. And in contrast, the Steenbok, which I'm struggling to find a picture of in here at the moment. I did have one earlier, but I don't know where it's gone. All I can find at the moment is a buffalo. But the Steenbok, in sort of contrast to the Duiker, has a much more rounded shape to it. So the back curves down towards the bum and then the back of the legs much sooner. It makes them look slightly shorter and less elongated in shape. And then the name Steenbok actually means sort of rock buck or stone buck, and it describes this reddish tinge to the fur that they have. And then they've also got a slight difference in their faces. The Steenbok's face is slightly flatter. The ears are slightly larger in terms of being round compared to the more elongated size of the grey or the common Duiker. So if you think of the common Duiker or the grey Duiker as being slightly more elongated, in terms of size, they are very, very similar. The common Duiker is maybe slightly bigger or at least longer than the Steenbok. But they are both sort of up to the height of the stomach of an impala, just to give you a rough sort of scale. Their heads would reach just up to the armpits or just up to the chest of an impala. So that's roughly how big they are. I'm trying to think of a domestic dog breed that would be quite a good height description. Maybe if you know Staffordshire Terriers, that would be roughly the height that Steenbok and Duikers reach, especially the English Staffordshire Terriers. So that's a sort of rough comparison. There's also a little bit of a difference in the way that they move. Duiker do dashes into undergrowth, sort of zigzagging through, and then stop and disappear and hide away. Steenbok do a little bit of a bounce, and then drop their tails and stop wherever they are and look back at you. So there's a bit of a difference in the way that they move. And the name Duiker actually means diver, and it describes the way that they do those short dashes and then a very long dash into bushes, like a diver, which is the Afrikaans word, Duiker. So I hope that helps you, Jane. I'm sorry I can't find a picture of a Steenbok offhand. I should actually have my other mammal book with me as well. but I don't on this particular morning. But that is how you distinguish between Steenbok and Duiker. And then, of course, you throw Sharp's Grysbok into the mix, which we haven't seen yet. It is slightly smaller than the other two, and it almost looks as though it's got flecks of grey in it. It's got these tiny little white hairs or white tufts of hairs that poke through the coat. But our chances of seeing one out here, they are around, but our chances of seeing one out here are fairly slim. So let's continue on our lion search. The other vehicles haven't picked up on any tracks. Just chatting about the Steenbok. Georgianne from Illinois, welcome as always to the Sunrise Safari. It's great to have you back with us in the back of the vehicle. And Georgianne had noticed that at our Steenbok sighting they've got stripes down the inner thighs at the back, and she was wondering what the purpose behind those is. And I think it's a combination of things. I think it's quite a good visual communication and a good way for them to follow each other if they need to. And I also think it serves to maybe break up that outline, especially when they've got that white, very white rump. If their tail is up, then if the predator's eye is following that white flash and then it drops down, then those stripes just help to break up the sort of lighter patch that's under the belly and along the inside of the legs, so that it just helps to enhance the effect of that flash coloration of the white rump. That's just my theory on it. I don't know for certain, but it's probably the most likely reason behind those stripes. As far as I know, they're not in any way connected to scent glands of any sort. Some leopard tracks, that's why I stopped the way I did, but they're not fresh. They're definitely from sometime yesterday, so nothing we urgently need to follow up on. So I'm going to take myself off the main road for now, simply because the other vehicles have been traveling along there, so I don't think that they're going to miss anything that we could find. So we'll leave them to patrol the boundary and head off in this direction. And I'm starting to feel very familiar with this area after yesterday's somewhat fruitless leopard search. We did have very fresh tracks, but didn't manage to find them in the end. So we'll just do a quick loop, see if any fresh tracks have come out over our vehicle tracks. I mentioned a little bit earlier that we had this spectacular evening sighting of the 5 Birmingham boys falling right next to us, and in particular that large male, also known as Blondie as far as I know. And Blondie obviously because their manes are very light in colour. And Kay Lioness, you would like to know if lions with those blonder manes are more likely to produce white lions than those with darker manes. And I have to think about that for a second. So the white lion gene is a recessive gene. It's a recessive allele, which means that you've got to get 2 adults with that recessive allele pairing. And bear with me if you already know this, but there might be some viewers who aren't too sure about this. So it's a recessive gene, which means you need to get 2 parents, both carriers of the gene, but obviously don't show it because it is not a dominant gene. It doesn't push and appear in the physical appearance of a lion. And you've got to get those 2 individuals breeding. And it's not a type of albinism. It's actually more towards leucism. So they don't have the red typical eyes of albino animals. It's actually, they've got the blue eyes and the slightly darker tail tips. So they're not completely devoid of pigment. Now, in terms of genetics, most of the white lions that we see come from the sort of Timbavati area and around the sort of General Kruger area. And as far as I know, it's not often seen, and I could be wrong about this, but it's not often seen, or in fact, I've never heard of it being seen anywhere else in the world naturally occurring. So my guess would be, because that darker mane is indicative sometimes of lions that have come from or migrated in from the western areas of the country, so the Kalahari, they often tend to have much, much darker manes. My guess would be that yes, lions with lighter manes might be more likely to be carriers of that genetic trait, of that white lion gene. That is a theory, and I'm just sort of thinking about it now on the spot. I think it is a really good question, and one that might have a basis in fact. So my answer is going to be yes, lighter maned lions will probably be more likely to be a carrier of the white lion gene. But I would not say that it's impossible for a darker maned lion to pass that gene on as well. I just think there's a higher likelihood. That's my theory and that's my explanation behind it. But it is a difficult question, but I think it's a very good one. Rather thoroughly at Treehouse Dam, which is close to where I last saw those mating leopard tracks. But we were chatting a little bit about, just stop for a moment and have a look at what's happening here. I have learned very serious lessons about driving too fast past dams, because I have had a couple of sightings where leopards have been tucked away in the bushes right next to the dam and I've missed them. So, for a little bit unaware of the happenings of the past few days, the Birmingham Boys, which is a coalition of 5 young male lions, have been pushing into the territory of the 2 dominant big boys, big male lions, the Matimba males, and they've been, to say they've been causing chaos is probably an understatement. So they killed a lioness from one pride, the Nkuhuma pride, and they also, a couple of days, Sticks. So the Sticks lionesses one of them had 3 young cubs who were about 5 months old, and the Birmingham Boys killed 2 of them, and one of them actually carried a cub around, and cub and the lioness could come to the middle of that conflict. So we will keep them safe, but that is a possibility. Unfortunately, no sign of leopards who continue to me. So we